Schultz, can you step into the mic?
Yes, sir. Are you in favor of a value-added tax to reduce the federal debt? Why or why not?
Well, I'm in favor of, once I get to Washington, of analyzing our entire tax structure. That's certainly one option. I'm not prepared right now to tell you exactly how I would vote on that, but generally I think I'd be opposed to it. But I'd like to research it. I'd even like to read it. Wouldn't that be novel?
What programs would you get rid of to help balance the budget?
Well, boy, is that an interesting question, and a very all-encompassing one. Right now, there are 150 government agencies that have outlived their usefulness. 150 of them. Have you ever noticed that when we open a new agency of the federal government, it never goes away? So I would start with the 150 of the agencies of the federal government that have outlived their usefulness and outlived it in a rather extreme way. That's where we start. But ladies and gentlemen, as a businessman, I can tell you that deficits are not in my vocabulary. You cannot run a business, large or small, with the concept of deficits. So I can assure you that I will lead that direction to eliminate those deficits.
Can you elaborate on what specific programs you think you should start with?
Well, there's a large number. There's 150, and I didn't memorize all of them. But one of them is the issue of the money that we're spending for the arts. Some of those actually become obscene. And how about the latest television commercial that says we spent something close to $2 million on deciding issues with ants? Ladies and gentlemen, we have spent some money on some very, very foolish things. And we need someone there with common sense, with business sense, that's not afraid to make the hard decisions. I've made hard decisions all my business life, 42 and a half years. And I cannot guarantee you that every decision that I'd make would be popular, but I will guarantee you that every decision I make will be in the best financial interests of this country. And I have a question for you, kind of returning the favor, if you will. I had dinner with Senator Orrin Hatch, the senator from Utah, in March. And he had a very interesting question for me. He said, Tom, when is the last time we have had a fiscally conservative majority in either the House or the Senate? Does anybody in the room know the answer to that? Okay, the answer is never. We have never had a fiscally conservative majority in either the House or the Senate. Do you think maybe that could be why we're in debt for closing in on $13 trillion? Do you know, at your homes, how many times have we all said, boy, I'd love to have that, but can't afford it right now? I have yet to hear that in Washington, D.C. Every bill that seems to come down the pike, no one has the courage to stand up and say, the United States of America cannot afford this. I don't think there's any embarrassment in that. We've all done it in our homes, so I think we should be able to have someone in Washington that has the guts and the courage to say, we can't afford it. Next subject. I'm in for that.
Do you agree with the federal bailout of GM and Chrysler?
Put your seatbelts on. I think I'm going to surprise you. I do not agree with the bailout of Chrysler or General Motors. Ladies and gentlemen, we, all of us together with all the other citizens of this country, we rewarded bad management by bailing them out. I can tell you from firsthand experience, the General Motors management was the worst in the auto industry, far and away. I can tell you that Chrysler's management was slightly better. But now let's take a look at the result. After we bailed out Chrysler, and we talk about keeping jobs in our country now, after we bailed out Chrysler, we gave it to Fiat, the Italian car manufacturer, for $0. All of us put money into it. Fiat has no skin in the game. And if you've noticed, I've already found one, I think I can see their philosophy. They've already stopped calling the Dodge Ram, they stopped calling it a Dodge Ram. They now call it a Ram. In my opinion, they're going to spin that truck off to someone in India or Korea, and they're going to take that money back to Italy, and they're going to continue to do those things. Let's talk about General Motors and how poorly they were run. In order to give you that answer, you have to understand how well Ford Motor Company did. Now keep in mind, I have franchises for all of these companies, so it's a little off the mark. You would expect from an automobile person to say not to do that. Ford Motor Company did not get a bailout, did not get a guarantee. Mr. Mullally is the president of Ford Motor Company. He came from Boeing Corporation, Alan Mullally. And I've had dinner with him and lunch with him on numerous occasions because I'm on the national board of directors of the National Auto Dealers Association. Now listen to his side of this story. When he arrived at Ford Motor Company, he's a visionary. He could see that our economy was failing, starting to fail. He took all the assets of Ford Motor Company, including the blue oval Signia, and he mortgaged those for $28.6 billion. Now we come along as the United States government, and we run General Motors and Chrysler through bankruptcy. We eliminate all of their debts and obligations. They now, through poor management, they now are more competitive on a per car basis than Ford Motor Company is, because Ford Motor Company is required to pay interest on $28.6 billion annually, and Chrysler and General Motors don't have the same equal debt. Now think of that. Think of it in your own terms of your business. Would you like your competitors to have their overhead lowered dramatically by taxpayers, but not yours? I happen to feel the same way about Wall Street. We didn't need to bail out Wall Street. And let me go back to the auto industry for a second. In my opinion, what would have happened had we not bailed out Chrysler and General Motors, Ford Motor Company would have bought General Motors and would have kept the same type of, virtually the same numbers of employees, and we could have sold Chrysler to some of the supplier companies that were anxious to get into the auto industry. We could have got something back for taxpayers instead of giving it to Fiat. That boggles my mind. Why didn't we give it to, if we had to give it away, and I disagree with that, why didn't we give it to an American manufacturer? Alan Mullally said to me just recently, he said, Tom, I did it right. My own government came in, and now I'm at a disadvantage of between $600 and $800 a car because the government saw fit to bail out bad management. We have the same situation on Wall Street. What happened to the free enterprise system? And where in our Constitution does it say that who has the right to say, you at the Beacon Journal are going out of business, but you at the Plain Dealer get to stay in business? Not real fair. And they're using our money. And that's what's wrong. That's part of what's wrong, and that's part of what's broken in Washington. They think that money's their own. That belongs to everybody in this room and every citizen in this great country. And we have to find a way to see that that never, ever happens again.
If the GOP succeeds in repealing the health care bill, what would you vote for to take its place, and how would you pay for it?
Okay, first of all, let's talk about the logistics of that. I don't think there's any way that the Obama health care bill can be rescinded. Remember, he has a veto right. Let's presume that conservatives take over the House and the Senate with a majority, and I respect the office of president. I happen to disagree with the person that's in there right now, but we'll never be able to rescind that, but we have Plan B. All the funding for all bills and programs originate in the United States House of Representatives. If we're fortunate enough to take back the House, we can refuse to fund that. And if there's no funding for it, it will wither on the vine. Then we take a very deep, hard look at our healthcare system. I'd start right away with the fraud in Medicare and Medicaid. As most all of you know, I'm the head of Crime Stoppers of Northern Ohio by nomination of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I know how to ferret out criminals. Since I took over Crime Stoppers almost 10 years ago, they were paying 10 to 12 to 15 rewards a month. I'm proud to report to you today that Crime Stoppers takes between 60 and 80 felons a month off the streets of Northern Ohio. We have determined, we as a country, have determined that there's $60 billion in fraud in Medicare and Medicaid. And yet we're not paying doctors enough money per patient to get their interest. I don't know if there's a few senior citizens here who have had doctors reject them and say, you know, I can't do this Medicare, Medicaid thing because I can't get paid, and when I do, it's not enough. So we've got to take care of that also. So this healthcare program was jammed through the government in a very short period of time. The last count, I believe, is over 2,000 pages. First, we have to read all of it. Are any of you aware about the tax that's in the National Health Care Program? The tax on what you sell your house for? When and if you sell your house, there is a tax of 3.8% on the proceeds of the sale of your house, on the selling price. And that's to help support the National Health Care Program. Did any of us hear about this before? I didn't. I mean, I learned about it a few weeks ago. I mean, it's issues like that, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to have accountability from our elected officials in Washington. They had an obligation to bring that to the party, to bring it to the table, and say, as part of this plan, the following tax is included in it. You know, the idea that they can pass any bill secretly, it doesn't fly with me. And I've made a commitment that as soon as every bill is formulated and presented, I'll put it on my website for everybody to look at, before there's a vote on it, before there's an opportunity